Welcome back, listeners to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that we get to do every 2 weeks together, and it's always a blast to get to have that opportunity to do so. So as we get kind of going into this, so we all know we have our quote of the day going on here. So this time, we're going to give it back to my buddy Chris. Chris, take it away.
Dreams don't work unless you do.
Thank you, Chris, for that little nice words of wisdom to kind of lead into the podcast here. So our guest that's coming in today is a former one, coming back from season 1, episode number 27, where we discussed him being a black male entrepreneurship, and then episode 28, where we discussed the school to prison pipeline. Both of these were amazing episodes where we unpacked some of these social issues that needed to be addressed. And I'm actually having him back today to discuss some more issues that we're facing in our society that's been brewing for centuries that are going on. And I think it's an important topic to look at. Those two topics are stereotypes and double standards. And when we break this stuff down, again, we are simply just two guys having a conversation, having a good time over here in the classic city of Athens, Georgia. So we're not experts, just enjoying a good old time here. So Paron, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much, sir. Good to be back.
Now, it's been a year and a half, and some people have not been around listening back to all these episodes and keeping up from now. We're going on like 60, 70 some episodes now.
Congratulations on that.
You know what? It's been a weird ride. I'm not
putting a little work in, right?
Oh yeah, always putting that work in. Putting that work in. Catch us up. For a year and a half ago was the last episode. What's been going on in your world, man?
Not much, but a little bit of everything. So, still on the same path as far as being an entrepreneur in Athens, Georgia, running a couple service companies and still doing music, just always trying to get better. We have a couple more contracts, if you will. So the business is growing. I recently released an EP with another artist by the name of King Blanco out of Athens, Georgia. So that's doing pretty well right now on the streaming sites. A couple shows here and there, and just trying to stay safe and sane in this crazy world of ours.
That's a true statement if I've ever heard it, of trying to stay sane and safe. Man, it's always something out there. Now, the topic that we're going to get into today, let's just go ahead and start diving in here, is what springs to mind when you hear that word stereotype?
Oh, man. I mean, so many things can come to mind when you talk about stereotype. For me, it's about, I guess, certain ethnicities and races falling into their stereotypes, whether it be negative or positive. And so, for me as a black man, I would say that I've used certain stereotypes in a positive manner, or a key, if you will, maybe. And then also, as a black man, I've seen my race, my culture, use their stereotypes in a negative way or fall victim to their stereotypes, as to where, they think this is who they are, this is who they have to be. So let me just go ahead and follow suit, perpetuating a cycle that they don't have to. So that would be, my thing.
Yeah, that's always a big challenge of whenever someone looks at you from across the room and judges you before you even had the opportunity to even acknowledge and learn from each other about who you are. Because I'm not saying that I, struggled heavily from it, but having long hair I was always looked at, okay, hey, I got, pulled over by the school police being like, hey man, like, what you doing, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Or, hey, growing up in the South and having wearing overalls or wearing a certain type of shirt of, the old hillbilly kind of deal of
course.
You're, unintelligent kind of things. But it goes just beyond race and ethnicity. It goes to like ages, and it goes to just like the types of jobs you have and all this different stuff. Definitely. It's like, it's crazy. And how do you feel these representations of these different races, ethnicities, and other diversities in school work and affect popular culture and how we look at our kind of daily life?
Regarding stereotypes?
Yeah, regarding stereotypes.
Well, I mean, like you just said, it's a broad scope, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, if you look at Jonathan in 6th grade coming to school, he doesn't think that his teacher knows what he's going through because he's an older teacher, or she's an older teacher, and old people don't know, and they always want to try to tell you not to do this and tell you not to do that. So that's a stereotype that falls on them. And then the teacher in turn, looks at Jonathan, well, you're young, you're dumb, you don't want to, pay attention
You
to
don't have
anything.
that open mind.
Yeah, you don't have the open
you
mind.
don't have that experience.
Exactly, right. And so, with stuff like that, you see every day. Once again, I can always speak to myself as far as stereotypical things or whatever. Like, okay, so I do security, right?
Yeah.
And being that I do security, my stature, my race, somebody is always going to see me at the door and assume that I'm a bouncer. That's the biggest thing. Like, oh, well, are you a bouncer, or how many fights have you been into this week, and so forth and so on. I tell people all the time, well, I'm not a bouncer. I do security, specialize in de-escalation security. And so I'm going to try to talk to you first before anything else happens, before we have a physical altercation, before we have a screaming match, before I put you out or anything. I'm going to have to talk to you. And so, stereotypes, like you said, it's a broad scope with that. So, you have to, it's just a fine balance, because, I might look at someone or assume somebody's job or their stature or something like that and say, oh, well, he's that size, he must have played sports or something like that, and he might not have a sport athletic bone in his body.
True.
Right.
True. And you may look at the guy coming up in a business suit that's has may look like it's Armani or something. That guy could literally be broke as a joke sitting in his backyard and just spend his last dime buying this giant suit here, maybe kind of looking away. You just
never know. And I think that we kind of go through our day-to-day off of stereotypes in a sense.
True.
As well.
It's like
which
a safety
is not,
precaution.
Yeah, like a safety
ways.
precaution. Right, right. And it's not good. It's not all bad, but it's not good, especially when you're dealing with people that you don't know.
That's a true statement, especially because of going back to being caveman. You're looking at, as a caveman, you had to figure out fight or flight in that kind of moment for
No question.
And if you're dealing with somebody like looking across the room, that you have to make that first judgment of, okay, am I in a safe place to start off with? Okay,
right.
If I'm in a safe place here, okay, cool, I can be able to confront it. But if that guy looks like he is maybe on drugs or some sort of fashion to it, I got to be, okay, how am I going to react within the short period of time? Because I want to get home to my family.
Right.
I want to be able to make it back.
Right.
So that's, there's, again, it surrounds us.
It does.
It does. But whenever we use the word stereotypes, it automatically becomes to that direct negative, because there's more negative than there is positive.
Of course, yeah.
And how do you think we have come up with these labels over the years to get to this point?
A lot of stereotypes, if we're looking at it in a negative way, right, then you're going to talk about race. And so it's just about what a certain ideology that's fed to generations upon generations upon generations, right? So if I say, okay, all black people are lazy, and then feed that to everybody, that all black people are lazy for the next, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, then somebody is going to pick that up and repeat that and find that,
they're looking for it.
They're going to look for instances, not paying attention to 425 years. It was the
reverse.
Reverse. Exactly.
It's like when you buy a car,
right,
and you realize, hey, no one has this car, and then all of a sudden you buy it, and now you start seeing it everywhere because you're thinking about it.
You're thinking about it, But for 425 years, we built this country. This country was built on our backs, and so that couldn't be laziness. So what happened from then till now, to where, or you look at something, let's go another stereotype, a racist stereotype or gender-based stereotype. Women are bad behind the wheel. That's very false. I know a lot of men that can't drive.
Dude, you look at tickets, more men get tickets than women do because we're way more reckless when it comes to like speeding tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
More men are prone to drunk driving
and
all that stuff to it. But I guess we look at going back to another stereotype of age, we look at the grandma lady driving a bingo who's driving 2 miles an hour behind the wheel, kind of in that range. That's a stereotype again.
But so let me be honest now. Now, see, this is where I fall into the stereotype part, because I feel as though at a certain age you should stop driving.
Oh, I agree, because you can become a hazard to others.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you're more of a liability on the road as opposed to flowing with traffic and keeping everything going. So I do stand on that. Like after like 70 pick a number.
Oh, man, I'm like, man,
75,
you're looking
70.
at 70. I was like,
No,
okay,
I mean,
like,
I still know a lot of active 70-year-old people. I mean, my mother-in-law just drove down here.
yeah.
She's what, 76, 77 years old? She drove from West Virginia and back to West Virginia.
My grandfather-in-law drove every year from Ohio down to Florida,
Right.
up until he was 90, like, and just
Right,
clears
just-
the whistle.
yeah,
so maybe we're
exactly.
thinking that's reel back for a second, not tick off all of our listeners that are in the 70 years
No,
old.
no, yeah.
Like,
No,
hey,
we definitely-
every 5 years, that after you hit the age of 70, that's
Right.
do a test, and then also you can look at that and say, hey, every 5 years after you get your driver's license, you should be able to do a test.
Right.
I don't know.
If I ticked off any listeners, I do apologize. But I plan on giving my license up after 70 something. So just to let you guys
Well,
know.
by the time that you're driving in your 70s, we'll probably have like cars that are self-driving at this point. And
Possibly. I don't know if I'll be willing to jump in a car that's self-driving at 70. I'll probably be a little
True
paranoid.
statement. Yeah, as we all
I'll
are.
probably be a paranoid. But
Back
but
in my day are going to be this. They're going to
yeah,
be a keyword.
I know, right.
I wonder how that one came to be a stereotype. Back in my day, of like, I feel like that's kind of like a stereotype of how
Yeah,
we
it
look
is.
at
Yeah, for
to
sure.
technology and how we look at certain
Yeah.
stuff. Of like, it is a generational
Yeah.
thing. Like
Yes.
I hate whenever someone looks at someone and gives them a pass saying, "Oh man, that's just that generation." Like, no, wait a second. Like, we've moved on from that past thing. You can't just still say X, Y, and Z and expect not to get punched in the face.
No question.
Like,
No question.
That's kind of there.
No question.
And like, how do we educate others to be more apparent and more observant of as that generation kind of changes? Because let's be honest here, going politically correct, stuff changes like every other like month and like, or every year of like, okay, you can no longer use this word, you can no longer use this word.
Right,
So
right.
what word are we on? And trying to keep up is near impossible in some
Right.
ways.
So it's kind of crazy that you asked that, because so the EP that I just released is called Generational Chaos, and it's with, like I said, it's with a guy by the name of King Blanco, and he is, let me see, if I'm 41, he's about maybe 17 years younger than me.
Okay.
And so we come from completely, it's a few generations
Oh,
in between
yeah.
us, right? And so the reason for doing that EP was to bridge the gap, right? And that is where the name comes from, Generational Chaos, because regardless if we're talking about my generation, the one between mine, the one after mine, or, Blanco's generation, we've all dealt with similar things.
True.
We might, it might be broadcasted differently, as opposed to when a current affair happened, it was in the newspaper the next day or on TV a couple days later, as opposed to 2 minutes from now. It's right on
It's
IG, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everything's viewable within seconds.
Within seconds, but we're still going through the same thing.
Yeah.
The same thing that I've seen, the same thing that I was deprived of is the same thing that you're seeing and you're deprived of.
It's just a matter of how it's being distributed massively. It may be only seen by a certain area of people, and now it's being seen by pretty much everybody within a short period of time.
Exactly.
And people
so,
can make that quick judgment rather than having to sit back and let it almost filter for a few seconds, let it stew for a minute,
Exactly.
which can still be heavily negative too.
No, it can.
But
it can. Yeah.
you at least had some time for, I'm going to say, damage control, or like kind of confront it.
There's no time for damage control.
There never is, but it's you had at least time to almost mentally prepare for of what could be coming. Of like, oh man, I messed up, and now it's like with the instant of it, with an Instagram kind of coming out to it as those. People are not thinking when they're posting it up there, putting it up there as quickly, because you can't get that back. Like,
No,
once
yeah,
it's there,
right.
that's the whole thing right now. We're in the instant generation of like whenever it goes IG, my brain instead of says, oh, it's Instagram. I'm like, no. My brain goes to instant generation.
You say instant generation.
I
Exactly.
say instant generation.
And so that's the name of the EP is Generational Chaos, because it's a bridge of the gap, right? To where it doesn't matter how old you are, what you've seen, what you might go through, we will all go through and witness and deal with the same thing. Maybe on different levels, maybe not as extreme as others, but we will deal with it. So your 41-year-old hip hop artist is no different from your 23-year-old hip hop artist.
True.
When you break it down, as opposed to, our goal, why we're doing it, and where we want to take it to. And so that's just the same thing as a 56-year-old teacher, professor, compared to a 26-year-old,
Just coming out.
just coming out and having to start.
Yeah.
You guys will see the same thing, and it's better to bridge the gap and not look up at this 56-year-old teacher and say, oh, well, he's set in his ways, she's set in her ways. She only has one way to educate these people, and she can't learn another way, and she's out of touch with, my age group of people.
Yeah.
And then the 56-year-old, once again, cannot look back and say, well, you're just getting started. You guys are teaching a whole new way now. In my day, like
This
you
is
just
what it
referred to,
was.
in my day, this is what it was. And we had to do this curriculum, and we had to take these steps to grade these type of papers. And instead of bridging the gap, coming together and say, okay, well, look, we learned two different ways, but you're still teaching my age group. I'm still learning from your age group. So let's go ahead and bridge this gap, coincide, and see how we can, and that should go across the board with so many different things.
That's a hard thing it comes to, I'm going to say, in my opinion, the idea is it comes down to pride.
Right.
Of like people wanting to put that pride aside to sit down and admit that, hey, maybe what you're doing over there is really good, or what I'm doing over here, and trying to have that conversation, because of it almost gets lost in translation if one person's not willing to put themselves, either lowering themselves to open up their mind.
Just get out each other's way.
Yeah, get out. Yeah. And that's
get out your own way and get out each other's way.
Exactly.
To create and build, and like you said, it's hard. Pride is a killer. I mean, my pride has killed me a couple times. And so, I stand here and say that it's hindered me a few times from seeing different points of view, moving a certain way, taking advantage of a certain opportunity. So, you have to definitely be wary of that. And then when it comes to, learning from older generation or younger generation, you definitely have to put your pride aside. You definitely have to try to think outside the box. Nobody's asking you to conform. I haven't tattooed on my fingers, never conform. Yeah. So nobody's asking you to conform all the way, but definitely try to be open-minded, try to be understandable for the most part. And if you can't have empathy, try to have understanding.
And something that you mentioned earlier with, conflict resolution as you're working security, how are you able to take all this into consideration from looking at, someone that's coming up and trying to approach you? This is where I'm going to look at trying to find a positive with looking at stereotypes, to be able to try to talk at someone at, not saying their level, but that's something that's relatable to them. Because if all of a sudden I start pulling out a Southern draw and start, yelling at somebody and throwing in y'all and a couple other words, it's going to set somebody off in a different direction where they're not going to listen to you. How do you find that middle grounds when you're having to do conflict resolution with an individual, that you're meeting them at their level, but also being true to yourself? That's a weird question, but
no. It's not really weird at all. So, I mean, it's simple, right? Like everybody's heard me say it, especially the guards that I work with. If it's a bomb in the building, last thing you do is yell bomb.
True.
Right?
That's true.
So you don't meet aggression with aggression. So for me, I'm going to treat everybody the same, right? So regardless if I'm dealing with a 6'4", drunk frat guy, white or black, or a 5'2", 122 pounds, drunk white woman or black woman or Asian. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm going to deal with everybody the same, because at the end of the day, I need you to do two things for me. I need you to tighten up, and I need you to get out. Right?
True. That's safety.
So regardless. And so I just approach every situation. Now, yeah, of course, you might have to react faster to certain situations as opposed to other ones or whatever, as opposed to, if we just got a couple people at a table being a little rowdy, they need to calm down and quiet down, as opposed to, this group of people who are being loud, being disrespectful, in other people's way, hindering everybody else from having a good time. You know what I mean? So with that being said, you might have to react a little differently. You might even have to bring a couple more people with you to handle the situation, but you still just keep a calm. I mean, you have to be calm and composed and you take that like throughout life, right? Like you just have to be, when everybody goes up, you need to go down, and you need to find an even kill to handle the situation, because while everybody is in front of you running around, you don't want to get in line and start running left and right with them and screaming,
because then you escalate
exactly, you escalate the situation.
Yeah, you're escalating.
So you want to, you know, be able to cut through tension. You want to be calm and be able to cut through tension and keep your composure. And that's just how I do it. You know?
You make it where it's not, you're not allowing the situation to influence your judgment or your decisions whenever
I
you're
have
making
to.
that.
I have to, because I have people that are that I'm responsible for,
Uh-huh.
and people are expecting me to calm the situation down. So the last thing I need to do is, you know, get involved in the situation. We actually had something happen a couple months ago to where it was kind of close that I almost got involved in the situation or whatever, because we had a few belligerent people in our establishment where we do security at. You know, they were very hard-headed. The best way I can put it.
That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. They were very hard-headed, and you know, they didn't want to leave the premises. And then when we finally got them outside, they still wanted to talk loud and cuss and cause a scene or whatever. And you know, being a man and I'm thinking, you know, ahead of the game, let's go ahead and just get these people moving, so forth and so on. But
yeah,
I'm also a human being. And for me, myself, it's all but so much disrespect I can take. It's all but so much.
That's a true statement.
You know, but like I tell, and you know, me and my guards, we laugh about it to this day. You know, they say, well, you know, we were just waiting on your cue and something else would have happened. And when I try to explain to them, well, this is the thing about it. If something else would have happened, none of us would be doing security at this establishment anymore.
Statement.
And so that's why, you know, I always try to keep my composure, because I'm responsible for other people. And if I'm the first line of safety, then the last thing I can do is get into, especially something that can be, you know, if it can be handled differently, then let's go ahead and handle it differently.
So that's a very key important thing of keeping that calm demeanor here. Now that's try to figure out, how did you get to that point? Because of not everybody has that skill to overcome the stereotypes that go into their mind and react in a different manner with somebody. Like that's try to like educate some people on that. How did you get there?
Life experiences, man, and dealing with so many different people, right? And knowing that every stereotype is not the same. Excuse me, not so much as the same, but not the truth.
There you go.
know,
yeah,
and
I like that.
and able to, and being willing to talk to somebody, whether it be if you've been around nothing but gay people or homosexual people all your life, and you know, you really don't deal with straight people or heterosexual people, and then you just so happen to sit in class one day next to a heterosexual person, male or female, and you're having just a flowing general conversation. No, you guys are not on two different sides of the spectrum. You're the same.
You're the same person. Yeah,
you're
exactly.
the same, right?
We all have blood and things inside of us.
Blood,
you know?
right? So two friends that we know that we were just talking about, Mr. Hall and Mr. Newsom.
See, now you're just calling names out here. Hey, look at this here. If we get a cease and assist later, it's on you. It's on you.
So one of the gentlemen they're walking up, and me and another gentleman are standing there, and he says out his mouth, if we didn't work at where we used to work at, then we wouldn't be friends. And I told him, I said, are you saying that, you know, we're closed-minded, that to a black guy from, you know, inner city Philadelphia couldn't be friends with a country guy from the farm of where's he from? Savannah, I think it is. And you know, we went back and forth and talked about that for a minute. But if you don't have conversations,
that's the big one, is the conversation.
You know, if you don't have the conversations and you're not open-minded, then, and that's basically just how, you know, how I became able to be personal with different people and not let a stereotype guide my conversation or my judgment of a person. And then, you know, once again, just I've been through a few things, hectic things in life and traumatic things in life. And, you know, I haven't always, held my composure. But as I got older, I realized that that was the smartest thing to do, because you're going to have more people in an uproar than more people keeping their composure. So I need to be one of the ones to keep my composure and stay calm in a situation. And, I just tried to perfect that throughout the years.
So you chose how to, rather than letting the conflict or the negatives that's happened to you throughout your life affect you long term, you took it as a learning moment and didn't hold on to it in a way that is hindering you later. You're using it as a positive to be able to take forward to help people with the conflict that may be going on. Because hey, you may have not gone through this, but I've seen this and I know where this is going next.
Exactly.
And if it goes there next, you're gonna regret this.
Yes,
we're gonna regret this. That's nip it in the bud before it gets to that point.
Definitely.
And that goes a long way. You mentioned earlier about how for generations, for the last 60 years or 50, 60 years, somebody starts saying something and they start picking up on it and it carries forward and people then start thinking about it. Where do you think that maybe originated? Do you think this is a problem of media? Do you think this is a problem of like books that's kind of been pushed out there? Where do you think this kind of started to create that word of mouth?
All of it. all of it, man. All of it. I mean, the media today and the media for the past, let's say 100 years for sure. Word of mouth, books. I mean, there are definitely books that might push
their agendas.
Definitely.
Another one that Romulus and Remus comes up as well. Then you look at some of the back in the Jim Crow, that came through pushing that.
Yeah, for sure.
And all the political cartoons that kind of pop up here and there, along the years like that. It's like, how in the world does this kind of get continued and kind of pushed forward?
When people want a certain ideology to reign and be, what it is, then that's what you have to do. If you want to control the masses,
propaganda,
right? So you have to push that, and you have to do everything possible. You have to control the radio stations or the media as a whole, whether it be radio stations, TV shows, stuff like that. You have to, not allow certain things to be shown. Right now, certain social media sites, they are not showing what is happening on both sides regarding.
That's true. That is a big problem. Two sides.
Regarding the East right now, and so they're not showing what's going on both sides, and they're not telling stories on how it's affecting both sides.
Yeah,
the word "die" is getting used for one side, and the word "killed" is getting used for another side.
Yeah,
and so
nationalism and terrorism,
right? Exactly, right.
Like they're fighting for their country, and this is a person that's trying to destruct that country.
Right,
and it's,
exactly. And so the media right now, certain social media sites and certain news media sites, they're playing into that game, and so it's just that's how it starts. It has have to happen. It has had to always been going on, because where did they learn it from?
This is true.
They picked it up and seen it used at some point in time before them.
Because we're so impressionable as children of what we see. We see it, our parents do it, and then so we do it as a result here, and that's why it kind of becomes that generational,
definitely,
that challenge, and trying to break that is so hard whenever you're going out. Because I think there's some statistic. I'm going to totally butcher the numbers here, but it used to be, looking up until the 1990s, it was a little over 50% never left more than 20 miles from where they were born when they settle down.
I believe it.
And then now that number has decreased, and that's now somewhere in the 30s or 40s that have remained in the area because we're become so more transient.
Right.
And I wonder, as we become more transient, that's kind of spread some more of these stereotypes, because it would be, hey, if you were in the north and you go down south, you didn't see some of these stereotypes up north that people were discussing about it. But the moment you walked down south, it was like, wait a minute,
right.
This is where people are talking about, and they look at it entirely different. I wonder how regionalized things kind of started to change or evolve with stereotypes, because that's crazy.
I mean,
just looking at it, because now it's like spread what's up north and south, east and west. It kind of just like almost
Yes,
gets in the same now.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm gonna say. It's everywhere now. It's a melting pot now.
Yeah.
You have so many people from up north that's down south, and vice versa, and people from the east going to the west, and it's just right now. It's just a melting pot. So I don't know if any region in America anyway has its own stereotype anymore, in a sense, right?
Well, you can look at California. People look at California as being like the new hippies, kind of in a way, which I hate using.
That's
that
all,
word,
but that's all. That's always been,
you can always look at that, continue it, but people have carried that forward.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's always been like Cali has always been looked at as the free world area, if you will, and they're so liberal over there and so forth and so on. That's what they say.
Yeah,
but if you don't know, if you've never been over there, you have no idea.
It's true, yeah. That's how the stereotype perpetuates.
Right.
You're just assuming what you've heard, and you've never been there and experienced it.
You've never been in experience. You might go to Cali and the first 3-4 cities you're in, it could be very conservative. It can be just like if you're in
driving 10 feet, 10 miles, it changes
exactly
county to county. Like
who knows? But and that's once again that is you hindering yourself from having life experiences and just going off of what you think or what
True.
you think you heard. And so you have to have the conversation. You have to get out and move around and see for yourself, and then make your judgment then. And if you see a stereotype and everybody that you've seen for the past 4 or 5 years fits that stereotype, okay, well, maybe it might be true, or maybe it might be similar for the people that you've seen for the past 4 or 5 years, but you have to be out there. You have to open your eyes, be observant, have conversations
True.
with people.
Now, something that somebody's going to go, this is a conspiracy theory, you're chasing something in the left field, Cade, is my brain goes to, I look at situations being a history teacher of chase the money. Where's the money kind of looking at of, do you think people with higher up the businesses and situations and that have created these stereotypes in order to create a power struggle in order to push down different ethnicity groups or different groups of people in order to keep control in some way, forms, fashions?
You have to. Yes.
And are they more likely to be the culprits for it or have started it rather than it being in the smaller, Joe Schmo that's at the bottom of the kind of totem pole kind of range?
Definitely. I mean, you have to. If you want to oppress a people and keep control of their day-to-day actions, decisions, and everything else like that, then yes, of course. It's always going to be your, what do they call it? The 2%?
Yeah, 2%, 1%.
Yeah, 2%. Yeah. So it's always going to, you're always going to have a handful out of the 2% who wants to control everything because they want to stay where they are.
Stay where they are, yeah.
And they don't want anybody coming to, so yeah, definitely. I definitely believe that. It's a good thing. No, it's not a good thing at all. I will say it's a bad thing, but I won't say that I don't understand it. Right. And the reason why I say I won't say I don't understand it is because, I want my family to live as well as possible, right?
Yeah.
And I want them to be as safe as possible, right? So I'm going to put them in the best position in the best area as possible. And no, we're not going to go to a place where it's going to be heavy crime, a large homeless population. And so no, I'm not saying I want them to stay there either. The people who are committing the crimes, and I'm not saying I want homeless people to stay homeless, but try not to bring it on my block. So I definitely understand, but I don't understand the oppression part of it and, holding someone down and holding someone back. And so that is where, the negativity part comes in it.
Yeah, because that's really challenging I know personally, I get guilty all the time of past experiences that my brain goes into, but as the human mind goes into it, we're all guilty of it, whether we are conditioned or from what people have told us or from our experiences that you mentioned as well earlier that we've kind of gone through in our lives. And it's trying to figure out where's that battle line of what's real and what's fake. And that's a huge line that we have to kind of be able to locate in order to open up ourselves to communicate with another individual, because it's hard for me to all of a sudden go up, say, recently I was in Atlanta and I was going to go eat at the Vortex. Love the Vortex. Going in, and there was an individual walking up my direction, and I knew he was kind of talking to himself, and I knew he was homeless just from like visual, like looking at him and seeing kind of like the way he's presenting himself. And my brain's going, okay, I have something in my pocket. Like I have some food, I have some cash to it, but all of a sudden I don't want to, my brain, am I stereotyping by saying, hey man, do you want like $5? Or hey, like I've got some leftovers. Do you want some leftovers? By assuming, my brain's assuming going, hey, this guy's homeless, he's hungry. Like, or hey, that he wants money kind of deal. But it may be, in all honesty, he could have just had a bad day and fell off the side of like of a truck
I get it.
or something, and just ripped his clothes or something and tried to walk home and just ticked off at the world.
I get it.
Like that is, it's so weird of trying to, how do we get into our own minds to fight that battle?
So that's what I was going to say. It's all real, right? And the only fake part of it is you and your brain. We're creating more problems here in our brain than what is actually happening in front of us.
That's why they use the phrase, we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah, you're your own worst enemy, right? And so when it comes to stereotypes and when it comes to stuff like that, that's the first thing we go to. That's the first thing we run to. We start overthinking and we start saying, okay, well, this guy's homeless. He wants food, da-da-da-da-da-da. But in all honesty, he could have fell off a train.
Exactly.
Just
had a bad day, man.
But yeah, so it's all real. And that's the only fake thing is when we are creating up here, because it hasn't shown us yet. It hasn't developed in front of us yet. But we're gonna put it right there. We're gonna put it right there, and we're gonna talk it up in our heads and go over it 3 and 4 and 5 times until something similar to what we are saying happens, and then it's, oh well, I told you so. But not really, because it took 10 years to happen.
To open your mind to say
exactly. Right. So I mean, that would probably be my answer to that, right? It's all real. And the only fake part is not so much as us, but just the problems that we create and the stereotypes that we still run with in our heads, for sure.
That's a great way to be able to kind of put that into a perspective. We look at I think mental health, the apparentness of it is becoming more open, that people are discussing it, more people are looking at it. And gosh, the self-help book market is just like its own world.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Within itself. And everybody's always trying to target you in these different ways in order to get you to read their book or kind of, try to connect in some way, form, or fashion. And I think that part of our brain is just, it needs that yearning, it needs that knowledge in order to try to create something. And stereotypes,
for sure,
I think allows the brain at some points to fill in the gaps or fill in that blank, because we are looking for an answer to something. We're always looking for an answer some way, form, or fashion. And our brains are sometimes our best friends, sometimes our worst friends. And I think that's part of our brain that is so hard to compete with.
Definitely.
So hard to compete with.
Fully agree.
Now, how would you confront somebody with that, or is doing a stereotype? Say if we're walking down the street and all of a sudden someone comes up and said something racist or says something in a very negative manner or acts in a certain way, how do you confront it in order to try to help change it, not being negative and angry about it and yelling at somebody like, hey man, how can I teach somebody to try to confront when they experience something negative of a stereotype that they want to try to change?
Listen to this episode with Cade Curtis.
Man, that was it. Man.
They should definitely listen to this episode. Tune in. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It's just everyday work, right? And putting yourself around like-minded people, and then hopefully pushing that the same message that they push regarding stereotypes. Push it a little bit more and push it a little bit further as far as don't believe all stereotypes. Find out for yourself if these stereotypes are true. And if you can get multiple people thinking like that, you can get multiple people pushing that message, then who knows? Maybe we won't go off stereotypes, and maybe the next time I'm walking down the street, a old white lady or a young black lady won't cross the street or be standoffish because they see a 6'1", 245-pound black man walking towards them. Who knows?
So we're going to take a pause in the conversation here because I think that's a great place in order to pick back up when we come back in on the next episode. Because the next episode, we're still going to discuss some more stereotypes, but we're going to start bleeding it into looking at double standards. So come back next week and listen in with us because of this conversation is just, it's killer. It's great. So if you would like to reach out, I'm going to leave some contact information for Paron and myself. In order, there will be some links at the bottom with some emails. In order to do so, some social media pages you can be able to look at. If you want to contribute through Patreon to this, feel free. I would love it to be able to help continue this going forward because I drove 90 miles one way up here. And I'm going to drive 90 miles back and get some gas money along the way. You know, hey, every little bit counts because I love getting these stories and these conversations out to you. So in another way, just, hey, if you don't want to give money, that's completely cool. Tell a friend, share this with somebody. Word of mouth is the biggest form of expression and sharing something out there. So as we leave, listeners, my name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And most of all, don't forget, let your curiosity fly high.